Hopefully. Yes. So I've started the recording and we have gone through the agenda for today's Exploring Careers with the Ontario Provincial Police. And we are now going to introduce our featured speaker. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce Sergeant Tony Gabrielli. Sergeant Tony Gabrielli's journey in law enforcement began in Montreal, Quebec. After completing the police technology program at CEGEP John Abbott College, Tony joined the Ontario Provincial Police, or the OPP, in 2009. He quickly advanced from cadet to provincial constable, serving in various specialized roles such as breath technician, coach officer, and technical collision investigator. Tony's career took a significant turn when he joined the Forensic Identification Services Unit in Belleville, holding complex cases with handling, complex cases with precision. Promoted to sergeant in 2020, he led the Smiths Falls Forensics Unit and later returned to Belleville SFIS as unit commander and acting staff sergeant. Currently, Tony is a senior recruiter with Uniform Recruitment, mentoring prospective OPP candidates, perhaps like some who are on the call today, and sharing his passion for policing and forensics. His dedication to specialized training, continuous learning, and mentorship highlights his impactful career in law enforcement, and we're really so pleased that he's joining us today. So I will stop sharing now and turn over the presentation to our guest, Sergeant Gabrielli.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the warm welcome. I appreciate this, and I appreciate everyone that's sitting on this meeting today. Hopefully, and I love what I've learned, I should say, is doing these virtual presentations. It's great to have your engagement as well. Through the chat, thank you so much. And thank you, Jessica, for agreeing to moderate and assist me through this, but as well with your reactions as well. And I kind of start this off too with if you could just, by a show of hands, virtual hands, that is, how many are interested in a career with the Ontario Provincial Police? If you could just, with your reactions, sorry, your virtual ones. Excellent, Christina. Thank you so much. And what I'd also share as well, if you're comfortable and if you're able to, feel free. I welcome you to turn your cameras on because it's always nicer to present to folks and see your reactions, see your faces as we go through. I know not everybody's going to have that availability, but Grace, thank you so very much. What I'm going to do is share my screen rather than giving a little brief intro because it's going to come in the presentation here. And to respect everybody's time, let me just make sure I have the right screen here. Yes. To respect everybody's time, I want to start the presentation because even this, as Jessica said, I will talk quickly to get the information out there. But what I will share with you is the OPP. Everything that we do from the point of being a candidate in the application process to a recruit, right through your 30 or 30 plus year career with the OPP, everything we do for you is geared for your success. So those that are interested in gaining employment with the Ontario Provincial Police, you will get all the information you need to be successful. So when you apply, you will find success and a rewarding career with the Ontario Provincial Police. So everybody can see my screen, I assume, because it's showing that way on my side here. Let's just, okay. So meeting the OPP, really, who are we? Well, most folks know us as a police service. Certainly, if you spend a lot of time in the GTA, we're looked at as doing a lot of traffic enforcement. But the fact of the matter is, we police all over the province. This is what I love about Lakehead University because campuses in Thunder Bay and in Orillia, and those are two major hubs for the OPP in Northwest region and in Central region. We also patrol Northeast, the East, the West, Central, and right around the GTA, which we call our Highway Safety Division. But where I'm going with this is we have almost 6,000 uniform officers across this great province. We have another 3,000 civilian members in our organization and anywhere between 600 to 1,000 auxiliary members. And our auxiliary members are volunteers within our organization. You can hear the sound in the background, and if it bothers you, just let me know. We can mute that. It's just some music in the background with some images displaying our organization, our members.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Tony. The music is quite loud on my end. I don't know how it is for everyone else, but I have a hard time hearing you as you talk.
Thank you for that. I'll try this, and we'll see if this works better. But regardless, we'll move on from that because the background music isn't important. The information I'm going to give you is important. Just with a show of reactions or hands here, does anybody recognize this building? So this is, as Jessica had introduced me before, this is John Abbott College. It's in Montreal, Quebec. That's where I'm from. Born and raised in Montreal. I moved to Ontario when I got hired by the OPP in 2009. So this is a little bit about my journey with the OPP over the last 16 and a half years. In 2009, I was hired as a cadet, where I spent approximately 14 months before successfully transitioning on to the role of a provincial constable. And one of the things you may have noticed from the previous slide to this slide is the shirt color. Within the OPP, our cadets, our auxiliary members, and our special constables wear light blue shirts. When you successfully transition over to a provincial constable role, it's the dark blue shirts. Not every organization, police service across Ontario works the same, but that's how it works within the Ontario Provincial Police. Within my first several years, 6-7 years, I worked as a frontline provincial constable on the road in a busy detachment, Quinte West, which is located in Eastern Ontario, just south of the 401, or actually the 401, Highway 401 runs right through Quinte West. It's approximately an hour and a half to 2 hours east of Toronto, for those that are not familiar with the area. But we also have the largest air base in Canada here, which makes it a very unique community. It's a very busy community, and in that, and in my frontline experience, I had a great passion in getting impaired drivers off the road. And that's why I became a breath tech. I went very strong into traffic enforcement, being a radar and LiDAR instructor. I was part of our field sobriety training and testing, as well as I had a part in our drug recognition program before moving up to a technical collision investigator. So that's a team of investigators that investigate serious collisions. In 2016, I should back up here. One of the elements that we're going to cover is a fitness component. And I understand on the session today, there are a number of athletes from Lakehead University. And so when I talk about fitness, I mean, this is second nature to you, but those that are not athletes, that it doesn't mean that you're not going to be competitive. What we're looking for is overall fitness and a commitment to a healthy lifestyle. The picture that you see before you, that is retired Commissioner Chris Lewis. I was honored the year I graduated, 2010, as a provincial constable to receive the Eric Neistat Fitness Memorial Award. And the reason I put this picture in is because fitness isn't just a necessity to be hired by the OPP, but we are looking for that long-term commitment to fitness. So as a recruit, our organization has almost 10,000 members across the province. It's a large organization, largest policing service in the province of Ontario. This award is only presented to 4 members each year, or 4 members annually. I was honored in 2010 to receive it. And it wasn't just for my fitness level, but it was for my ability to bring out the best in my fellow recruits fitness abilities. And that's when we even lean into leadership. And we'll talk more about that going on throughout this presentation. On the screen is my coach officer. I'll tell you a little bit about the process later on of what happens when you graduate from the police college. But essentially, you're assigned a coach officer. This was my coach officer, Jamie Sullivan. He's now a sergeant with the Ontario Provincial Police. But that Mercedes, it's on the back. If you could see that, that's a Mercedes that's on the back of a tow truck. It was my first stunt driving charge. So this Mercedes was traveling down the 401 doing 167 kilometers an hour. And this was very shortly, within weeks of me graduating from the Provincial Police Academy. So my first stunt driving, very memorable. I remember it like it was yesterday. And it's a nice segue because I always felt in my life that, and maybe it's growing up in Montreal, that I had made it, or I would know I had made it in life if every day I was driving around in a Mercedes Benz. That to me was kind of that symbol of success. Little did I know that the Mercedes Benz I was going to be driving in every day was what you see before you, and it's a Mercedes Transit van. And for those who have been in a Mercedes car or SUV and then in a Mercedes Sprinter van, rather, will know that they are extreme differences. There is nothing luxurious in this van, although what is fun about it is a forensic lab on wheels. So in 2016, I competed for and successfully joined our forensics program. The lovely lady that you see on screen is my grandmother. She was 95 years old, passed away last year, but she always loved seeing this great big van in her driveway. So anytime I was in the Kingston area, I made a point to stop in and see her. And so in that, what I want to talk about with forensics and with my background, what makes a forensic officer so unique in a policing capacity is their ability to testify as an expert witness in court with regards to impression evidence. And that could be tire tracks, it could be footwear impressions, or more commonly known, fingerprints. There's lots of forensic shows on TV now and documentaries. But the nice thing is, within the OPP, we have 12 forensic units across the province. And each one, we're like mad scientists because we actually have laboratories within our units, so chemical labs, where we mix up the different chemicals that we're going to use to process our exhibits and hopefully, like you see on the screen before you, develop fingerprints or impression evidence. In that capacity, we work with partners across the province, both federal, municipal, and our other provincial partners, I should say, as well. This is one of our federal facilities. This is Collins Bay, also in the Kingston area. I was very fortunate from a forensic standpoint to work on some of the province's largest investigations or most important investigations at the time. And often working with what we call in the OPP the pinnacle of investigations, which is our criminal investigations branch, or CIB for short. Anytime in the media you'll hear of a major occurrence involving the OPP, it's usually quarterbacked by CIB, the criminal investigations branch. And this just happens to be a homicide case that I worked on a couple of years ago with some of those members, as well as members of a municipal police service. So we work with partners across the province. What I'm most proud of now is the team I work with, and the team that you see on the screen is just a fraction of my recruitment team within the OPP, but I think it best represents what we're looking for and who we are as an organization. Why join the OPP? One of the other reasons, not just the diversity that we make up, but we have a very competitive salary. We are the province's police service, And anytime you hear about salaries within a policing capacity, we're generally talking about a first class constable. So that figure is on your bottom left of your screen, which is approximately $120,000 annually. Now, that is after 4 years of service. So if you join the OPP today, within approximately 4 years, that's the figure you're going to be making before overtime or any other factors are taking into account. But what we also have, in addition to a competitive salary, is our benefits. We have highly competitive benefits in a policing capacity and just organizationally, where our benefits are there for our members. And for those that are interested in a policing career, listen, I got to tell you, folks don't call the police when they're having a good day. Nobody's calling Tony and saying, hey, the neighbors and I are having a barbecue. Why don't you come over and join us? They're calling the police when they're having a bad day or potentially the worst day of their lives. And you're that point of contact. And what I like to believe is all of us in policing, and it's safe to assume most of us in policing, if not all of us, are in it because we want to help people, because we have big hearts. And sometimes we're going to see terrible things. And sometimes that's going to stick with us. So the supports that are offered to us 24/7, both available through our organization or with our external partners, and we're covered at 100% when it comes to mental health services, and that's invaluable in a policing capacity. In addition to our medical benefits, which also include, of course, dental and vision and others, we also have a very competitive pension plan. So competitive salary, excellent benefits, and a competitive pension plan all make the job that much more. Please let me know if this is very loud. It is? Thank you.
Yeah, the music is quite loud. Yeah.
Thank you. So what we're going to do, how about now? Is it still too loud or not at all?
I think that's better. We can barely hear it now, which gives us the ability to focus on you. Yeah.
Exactly. So the North is calling. This is what I love about doing presentations with Lakehead University is your campus right in Thunder Bay. We police Thunder Bay. We police more north of Thunder Bay. We police Northeast region, all over the province. What you're seeing on screen is just some of the video footage from around our northern areas in which we police. And those are available to you. Now, the North is not for everybody, especially if you're from the South, down in the GTA, even I saw a lot in the Aurelia area that may not want to go to the North. And that's okay. With the OPP, we want you to police in the communities that you want to police, in the communities you want to support. So right off the hop in your application, we're going to ask you to pick 6 locations from anywhere in Ontario, but where you want to work. And then in your interview, we're going to talk about those locations because our goal in recruiting is to get you into the communities you wish to serve. Now, if you're up for the opportunity or you're already from the North, we have great incentives, financial incentives and others for you to work in the communities in the North. And by general means, the more remote the community, the more the financial incentive you have to go work there. So we police over 1 million square kilometers of land, highways, and waterways across the province, 324 communities. And for those who haven't actually taken a look at the map of the province of Ontario, folks, it's massive. I always say And I don't know if you could see my pointer, but Toronto is a little dot on the bottom in the highway safety division, as it's shown on the screen here. And it could take you 8 hours to get across Toronto, depending on the traffic, any day, any given day of the week. And yet it's just a little blip or a little space on this large map of the province of Ontario here. And it's our playground. You can work and serve in whichever community you want across the province. One of the things that we do differently within the OPP, and this is where this is those that are interested in a career in policing and specifically with the Ontario Provincial Police, this is what to pay attention to. Because what we do differently is we give you the answers to the test. In an academic setting, I like to use that reference that we give you the answers to the test, and it's up to you to fill in the blanks. And what are the answers to the test? It's what's before you on the screen, our areas of assessment. And there's 10 areas. I'm going to dive into each one very briefly here, but to help you understand what we're looking for. And so if we start just like a clock and going clockwise, we start with education up at the top. Well, let's face it, all of you already are high achievers in the education department. How do I know that? Because you're registered and involved in post-secondary education. So with the OPP, the minimum requirement is a high school education or grade 12 equivalency. Anything you have beyond that, be it college, university, military, or even skilled trades, are going to put you at a more competitive level. And we move on to lifestyle. And very simply, lifestyle is, or can be summed up as, are you living a lifestyle that is conducive with being a police officer? Or more specifically, a provincial constable within the OPP. So we're going to look into factors such as alcohol, cannabis use, or maybe other substances use. Just as the platform we're on right now is virtual, we're going to look into your virtual world and see how you conduct yourself on social media, online, what your interests are, and what you've been posting. We're going to look at, and I love the land recognition that Jessica did at the beginning, because diversity is a major piece in policing, because regardless of your belief system, your religion, your gender, as a provincial constable with the Ontario Provincial Police, we serve all the citizens of Ontario and those passing through, regardless of their background, their culture, their gender or belief system. We want to know that you're going to do that fairly and professionally. The OPP, we pride ourselves in our professionalism by the way we look, the way we act, and the way we treat others. So having that experience working with diverse communities is going to help you be more competitive in the application process. And of course, our Indigenous communities within Ontario and beyond, for that matter. Our partnerships with Indigenous communities and territories is second to none. It holds a huge part in our hearts of our organization, and they are relationships that we don't take for granted, because we know in many cases it took a long time to build up those relationships, to build up that trust and respect. And we know that can be lost in a fraction of a second. So coming in to the application process, having prior experience, working with, engaging with Indigenous communities, and if nothing more, understanding the challenges that they faced. And again, I go right back to the introduction by Jessica. I think you hit it, the nail right on the head, because just as academically, in an academic setting, it hasn't always been foolproof when we speak about our Indigenous communities. But guess what? Those that are interested in joining policing, policing community. These uniforms weren't always viewed, or oftentimes are not viewed, in a positive light in Indigenous communities. Understanding why that is so important to a career in policing, and specifically within the Ontario Provincial Police. Community service. If I polled the audience in here now, I'm pretty sure, I won't in the interest in time, but I'm pretty sure if I ask you why you want to be a police officer, amongst the first answers are, I want to serve my community. I want to be a role model in my community. I want to give back to my community. And those are all things you are going to do as a police officer with the Ontario Provincial Police. But what we challenge you with is, what are you doing now for your community? And what have you done in the past? We want to see that you are making efforts to give back to your community now and previous to now. And we get it. Many of you are going to be full-time students, maybe have a job on the side as well. Life is busy. You may even have children. We're not asking for thousands of hours, but we are looking for that commitment to your community, and whatever community that may fall in, whether it's geographically, through your place of worship, or otherwise. Maybe it's sporting, right? Maybe because you are an athlete in a sport, maybe you coach younger children in that same sport or another one, and that's the way that you are giving back to your community. Employment, we want to see a positive employment history. Certainly some jobs that you may have direct parallels to policing, but arguably most jobs you could align with a policing career, especially those where you are interacting day in and day out with the community, with folks in your community. What we look for is loyalty to your employers. Perhaps I talked about it earlier, but again, it's going to come up and again and again. But leadership, perhaps you've shown leadership within your employment, within your jobs, and that could be officially or unofficially. Officially, maybe you got promotions, you moved up from part-time to full-time, maybe you became a key holder or a supervisor, and then on to a manager, and so on and so forth. Or perhaps your leadership way is simply taking on trainees, new employees that start, and you kind of take them under your wing because you see they might be struggling. We want to know about your relationships with your employees, with your coworkers, as well as your superiors. We're going to talk about all of those. And even short-term and cash jobs. We want to know about all of them. Leadership. How are you a leader within your employment, within your academics, within your community? I guarantee each person on this call today is a leader in your own way. We want to know how you're a leader. And this is, I give one of the examples when I talk about youth sports. I coach youth sports. I'm fortunate. I have my partner, my wife, and we have 4 children together, and I coach each one of their teams. And one of them particularly this year is playing rep sports. And I asked them at the beginning of the year, it's actually rep soccer. And I asked them, what is a leader? And I will tell you, to a 9-year-old, what a leader in soccer is right now. It's Messi or Ronaldo, basically scoring 1,000 goals per season. And I'm not saying Messi and Ronaldo don't have leadership qualities. I'm sure they do. But what I challenge my 8 and 9-year-olds with is that that's not, a leader is not how good we look. A leader is how good we can make this team look. And so whether that's your actual sports team, whether that's your academic team, your employment team, or whatever team it is within your community, that's what we want to know. We want to see how you're a leader in your life and every day as you conduct yourself every day. Driving, of course, right? Your first 3 to 5 years probably in a policing uniform, you're going to be behind the wheel of our beautiful black and white cruisers. We want to know how you're going to drive them. We want to know about your current driving experience, roughly how many kilometers per year you drive, what type of weather conditions and road surfaces you're comfortable driving on. And then we also want to know how many tickets you've gotten and how many collisions you've been involved in. Because as an OPP member and going right back to lifestyle, are you living a lifestyle that's conducive with being a police officer? Listen, are you going to be driving a police vehicle in a manner that is professional and conducive with being a police officer? Um, and look, if you have tickets along the way, if you've been involved in collisions, that's not the big red X on your file. We're going to talk about it. If there's two things throughout this whole process that you need to know, um, honesty and integrity. Those are uncompromising qualities in a police officer and are absolutely necessary throughout this process. So just be honest. If you've had a ticket, listen, be honest about it. We'll talk about it and we'll get through it. Communication skills. I like to say how you communicate with us and how you communicate with others. How you communicate with us through your application. The first thing that we're going to see, the first view of you that we're going to get is actually in writing and how you write up your application. Of course, I mean, it's a no-brainer to most, but it requires repeating because we see it constantly. Errors in grammar, in spelling, in formatting. Put your best foot forward when you fill out your application with the OPP because that's the first view of you we're going to see. And then, of course, we move on to the interview. The fun part about the OPP, the interview, is just like we're doing right now. It's virtual. It's one-on-one with a recruiter, and that recruiter may even be myself. So when you present yourself in front of the camera, what we ask is business attire, professionalism in the way that you look, the way that you respond and you answer your questions and articulate yourself. Moving on from communication skills, special skills. We talk about other languages that you may speak or other qualities that you're bringing in or certifications that you may have that have parallels to a policing career. Maybe it's mixed martial arts. Maybe it's scuba diving. Maybe it's, I've had this before, bear trapping. I don't know how many times you're going to use that in policing, but it can be in some communities. But any of those special skills, military experience that you're going to bring in that have direct parallels that are not only going to help you from a frontline police officer with the OPP, but it's also going to contribute to our organization. Motivation, simply put, why do you want to be a police officer? But then expand on it from there. Not just why do you want to be a police officer? How have you prepared yourself for a policing career and why the OPP? Fitness, when we talk about fitness, it's not just physically fit, it's also mentally fit. And how you manage those stressful situations. What we like to see is that already you're taking proactive approaches to deal with the day's everyday stress, whether it be meditating, going for a run, breath work, yoga, whatever it may be for you, we want to know that you're practicing it. And of course, when we talk about physically fit, I already mentioned that active lifestyle, but specific to policing, there's 3 fitness tests you need to know. I'll be very brief about it. Number 1 is the shuttle run. You have to be able to achieve level 7 on the beep test or the shuttle run. The second part is what's called a pin test. There's 4 components to it. There's a run, there is a flexibility, there's a core strength, and there's a push-up test. And then the last one is called a prep test. And that's kind of a circuit. And that's what you get to do at the Ontario Police College. I'll go into that in the questions if we have them, but in the interest of time, I want to jump to the next slide. So those are the 10 areas of assessment. Those 10 areas are how we determine if a candidate is competitive in the process of becoming a provincial constable. But what does that look like? How does this all work? Well, quite simply, with the OPP, the very first thing you need to do is you go online, opp.ca/careers, and you hit apply now. It's going to prompt you to create a username and to log in to the site, much like any other website nowadays. And then you're just going to fill out your information. And I will tell all of you right now, if you started this process tonight, you are not finishing it tonight. It is a lengthy application. I always say it's probably one of the hardest parts of the whole process, only because it is very thorough. And we ask you about pretty much every aspect of your life. But you fill out that application and you hit submit. The very next step goes to the fitness side. You got to prove your fitness level. And you do that by submitting a video to us of you doing the shuttle run. We give you all the instructions on how to do it and how to measure it out, but you submit a video to us of yourself doing this shuttle run, achieving at least level 7. The alternative to that is you could come out in person. When we hold in-person events throughout the province, you could run the level 7 or, again, minimal level 7 shuttle run with us, and we'll give you a certificate that's good for 30 days. Get that certificate, apply within 30 days, and you don't have to worry about submitting a shuttle run video. From there, you move on to the interview stage. I skipped over number 3 just because that's a part that you don't see. It's in the background. It's our pre-screening. We do that behind the scenes. What's important for you is you move on to your interview. That's the LFI ECI. The interview, again, it's one-on-one with a recruiter. There's no trick questions. It is all about you and how you fit in to those 10 areas of assessment. Once you've completed your your interview, and you're successful at that process, you move on to the background investigation. Background investigation means that a background investigator is assigned to your file. Essentially, their job is to corroborate all of the positive information that we already know about you. Then there's a psychological component as well, and some medical documents you have to get filled out and signed off on. All that comes back to us in a nice package that we call final review. And that's where hopefully you get the phone call offering you employment with the Ontario Provincial Police. This whole process takes between 2 to 5 months. And on average, right now, we are 92 or 93 days per application. And I'd say that 92 to 93 days is even for more complicated files. And what that means is that's really fast. Historically, and when I applied on, it was like a year and a half you'd have to wait from start to finish. We're talking about by next semester, you can be in an OPP uniform at our general headquarters or Provincial Police Academy in Aurelia, getting ready to go off to the Ontario Police College. And on that note, what does training look like in the OPP? And I'm just being mindful of time here. What does training look like in the OPP? Your first 2 to 3 weeks, you're in Aurelia at our general headquarters. Very convenient to some of you who are already in Aurelia. You're going to do 2 to 3 weeks of training. It's an intro. You're going to learn about the expectations, lots of paperwork. You're going to get your uniform. You're also going to get to do that fitness test I talked about earlier, the Ontario Fitness Pin, and those with those 4 components. And the expectation is you're going to be successful in it. From there, you're going to go to the Ontario Police College. That's in Elmer, Ontario, or the closest major city is London, Ontario. That's where members of every police service across Ontario go to for their basic constable certificate. So when you go there, you're going to be mixed in with members from every other police service. Once you graduate there, you come back to the Provincial Police Academy or our general headquarters in Aurelia for another 8 weeks of training. Once you graduate there, you have a beautiful ceremony. You receive your badge. You'll have your loved ones or your family with you. And then you report to your detachment and start your career. And again, you have your coach officer. They're going to be with you for another approximately 12 months. And your career is well underway at that point. One of the other options is, so I'm talking specifically as a provincial constable here, a police officer. But what happens if you're not successful in your first try, or if you're looking at alternative approaches while you're still in school? Well, we still have civilian employment. We have our special constable program. We have auxiliaries and our cadet program that are all available to you. Before I finish with this, what I just want to end with as well is going back to our hiring. The OPP, like I already said, we're almost 10,000 members strong across this province. We hire in large numbers. So there are 4 recruit intakes per year. And in each one of them, right now, there's a minimum of 110 recruits that go through in each class. So we're talking minimum about 450 provincial constables being hired in the next year and annually as we go through. So what that means is focusing on what you've learned today and your progression through Lakehead University and in your personal lives. You can very well be successful in the process of applying and becoming a provincial constable with the OPP. So I did go a little bit over time. I do apologize in that, but please, I can't see the chat right now. I'll actually stop sharing my screen because maybe that'll bring the chat back to me. Jessica, you could help me out with this as well. Questions, comments, concerns from the audience.
Definitely. Thank you so much for that, Tony. Such a great amount of information and a good overview about what to expect and what the process looks like. So, folks, we have reached the question and answer part of the presentation. If anyone has questions about anything that Tony has shared, now is a good time to raise your hand. And Christina, go ahead. We'll start with you. Please unmute yourself.
Hi. I have a couple of questions. The first one I have is, so I'm in school for social work, and I'm curious about like I feel like I'm a mentally sound person, but I'm also like extremely empathetic. So one of the things I feel like I would potentially struggle with if I was in this career is like the toughness you have to have. And I was wondering if there's like any sort of training while you're in the college that you guys do to kind of like address that. Because I feel like my social work training is like to make you like really empathetic and caring, and then it almost feels like an opposite. So I'm just curious about that.
Listen, thank you so much for that question, Christina. That is so great. And I think, that is such a great segue to, policing in 2025 and policing in general, how we've progressed over the years. Because I think if you went back 50, 60 years ago, policing was focused on toughness, right? There was crazy restrictions in terms of you had to be a certain height. In some cases, you had to be a certain gender. In some cases, we've dispelled all of that, and I think it's in the name of compassion, caring, showing empathy. A lot of the cases, and from social work, I love this, and I got to, for those participants that don't know, I got to meet with many from the social working program yesterday, which was so fascinating. And, in some ways, I can't think of a better parallel career to come into policing, because that's what policing is about. It is understanding the root of the problem, understanding why folks have gotten themselves into the situation. And, it's been largely placed in the media over the last number of years. A large amount of calls that policing deal with are mental health related, or crisis. I'll even say crisis related, because maybe there's addictions that are involved in. Well, that person that's going through that crisis, does that mean they're a bad person? Does that mean they're a criminal? No, it means they're having a bad day. Maybe it's because they've missed their medication. Maybe it's because something chemically has changed within them. Maybe it is the substance that they're under, or the withdrawal symptoms that they're under, trying to get better. So our approach is very much in line with your training already, and it is that empathetic approach. It's not that running in and going hands on. It's talking, it's figuring out what that best outcome is. Now, by the nature of the job, there are situations where we will have to handle them expeditiously because there is a risk to ourselves, to themselves, or to somebody else, where that's maybe where we're talking a little bit more about uh, going hands on. But again, even when we look at the core of policing and how we operate, one of our models or that we use was referred to as a use of force model, which almost implied that using force, where that's now changed. All of that change. And really, in policing, we've already worked on the articulation piece and handling situations without force for many years, but now it's become, and especially in the OPP, I want to say we are on the forefront of doing that. But now collectively in a policing audience, it has gone from that force idea or to that empathetic approach and understanding the problem to really resolve, because what comes with this as well is if we are able to get an individual the help that they need by truly understanding why or how they've ended up in that situation, much less, or we increase those chances of them actually rehabilitating, being contributing members of society, getting out of that loophole that they've been stuck within. So no, I think you are absolutely right on that, right? Don't lose that approach where you're worried about, no, I have more of an empathetic approach. That is policing. That is our approach. And absolutely, to your point, we absolutely teach that in the whole program through the Ontario Police College, as well through our Provincial Police Academy and onwards through our career.
Thank you so
Okay,
much for
thank
that
you so much.
question. Oh, sorry, Christina.
No, I was just saying thank you so much.
Thank you for that
Absolutely.
question. And Tony, we have a question in the chat, and then we'll take Megan, who
Please.
has her hand up. So first, the question in the chat is, how does applying work out when the applicant is still a graduate student? So would you recommend that people apply while they're still students?
So that's a good point. And I'm always so wary when I do this in an academic environment. And part of my portfolio is post-secondary education, college and universities across this province. The truth of the answer is it really comes down to the individual. So if I backtracked myself, I had gone through, and because I'm from Montreal, Quebec, so the academic system works a little bit differently in Quebec because we introduced this whole CEGEP system prior to university, and that. So I already had a diploma. I previously graduated the CEGEP system. When I went back for what's called police technologies, has similar parallels to police foundations in Ontario. So I was in the police technology program in my second semester of a 2-year program when I was hired by the OPP. So in fact, I did not complete that program. Now, is that for everybody? No, in most cases, you finish your program, and I'm pretty sure you take great pride in the program that you're in, that you want to receive your bachelor, that you want to receive your master's, you want to finish your degree. And so, really, where I'm going here is it's an individual decision at that point. If you're competitive within those levels, those 10 areas of assessment, then you are ready to apply. But holding on to a time when you are closer to your degree or achieving your own personal academic goals, that's also commendable and respectable. So I've skated around there because there's not one full answer.
Thank you for that question, and thanks for that answer.
Absolutely.
Megan has a question next, and then I see another question in the chat that we'll take after Megan's question.
Hi. My question's
Hi.
it was kind of along the similar line where I was actually wondering, you were saying that there's 4 intakes. So I'm
Yes.
actually entering my graduate year of my program. So I had gone to an information session before and they said that it's it's a good idea to apply before while you're still finishing. So in your final semester, kind of start working on the application and then submit the application when you're done. So then it's kind of like, oh, I've graduated now or I'm graduating now, and you're kind of transitioning into something else. But when you were saying with the 4 intakes, would that roughly be along in the May area? Would that be like along the timeline where they're looking?
Yeah, so a great question, Megan. Thank you so much. And so it's a very timely question because we kind of just fit into that as we came into kind of spring. And so it really comes down to a personal choice because we've become so efficient in our process to get it down to 92, 93 days per file. Um, it really comes, so we've had candidates that have applied on now, and because the same thing, they're graduating, and then all of a sudden they're making that transition right away. They're literally starting, they're about to start June 1st. They report, it's a Sunday, they report their actual start date is June 2nd. So they are getting no break or a very little break. Now others are taking that into consideration and kind of still want to have the summer off for one last kind of relax freedom before they get into the workforce. And so they've held off a little bit because the following class starts in September. So it basically goes March, June, September, December. So again, it comes down to, and sometimes too, it comes down to your workload in your final semester. Oftentimes that's compounded by taking an extra course to ensure that you're graduating in the timely fashion that you want to graduate. So again, it's going to be a personal choice of how much of a break in between do you want? Do you want to literally just finish school and then boom, start right into at the Ontario Police College? Or do you want to have a little bit of a buffer? Again, personal choice in that we will take applications 24/7, 365. It really comes down to when is right for you. And as a recruiter, I will always say, absolutely apply now. I want you to apply now because in many cases, candidates are already ready. They already meet our levels and to be competitive in the process, but they're holding off for their own personal reasons. Again, we want you to apply when it's right for you, when you feel that you're at your competitive best.
Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, great question, Megan.
No, thank you, Megan. Absolutely.
Sorry for interrupting you. Okay, so the question in the chat, and I'm just aware of time, it's 5:28, so
Yes.
we might have time for one or maybe two more questions after this, if you're still okay, Tony. But
Absolutely, please.
this is a complex one in the chat. It has a few places. So Ananya says, as you said, OPP offers civilian opportunities. Do these include technical or software development related roles? And then as a follow-up, they ask, as an international student, am I eligible to apply? I've seen some federal roles require 5 years of residency in Canada. Does this apply to the OPP as well? So first of all, are there software or development like technical roles in the civilian side of things? And can international students apply?
So great question. Thank you so much. So with the civilian side, the civilian jobs are going to be very specific to that job need or that job spec. So those, and because we're part of the provincial government, are posted on the provincial government's website. And I apologize, I believe it's gojobs.on. It's something like that, but it is the Ontario government's website, and all of our civilian jobs are posted directly on there. We do post some on opp.ca/careers, but the large amount. So when we get into the very technical, thank you so much. The technical jobs, those are going to be very specific versus when we're talking about it on the uniform side, where we're hiring in bulk. When it comes down to international students, now on the uniform side, and unless there's some specification on the civilian side, but I'll answer the question with regards to what I know 100% is on the uniform side, you need to be a Canadian citizen or a permanent resident to apply on. Now, if there's a specific speculation on the civilian side, that can be, but is beyond my area of expertise, and I don't want to speak beyond what I know for certain. So generally, when we're talking about, especially on the uniform side, it is going to be at least a permanent resident or a Canadian citizen.
If I could just ask a follow-up to that, Tony, what about
Please.
the auxiliary volunteer opportunity? Is that open to international students, or is that also a requirement to
It
permanent
still
residents?
fits currently. It still fits under that permanent
Okay.
resident or Canadian citizen. Now, what I will say on this, and and I learned this as I went through, because we're always learning new things every day. Now, an individual that is interested in a career in policing, a lot of times they are looking for work that has parallels, and it's going to help them gain that experience, the skills, the competencies that they need to be competitive. Corrections, and when I talk about corrections, there's provincial corrections and there's federal corrections. So essentially like prison guards, for those that don't understand kind of the general term of corrections, those are the individuals that essentially police our institutions, our prisons, our jails. That to be a provincial corrections officer, you don't have to have a permanent residency. So in that case, if you are looking to make that jump into policing, but in the meantime, you're trying to fill that void, that may be an option that is open to you.
And where do we look for information on civilian roles and any residency or citizenship requirements there?
You mean specifically with corrections?
No, for the OPP in terms of civilian roles. Is that going to be listed on individual job postings?
Exactly. Each one is going to have its individual job spec. So it's going to be, because those are going to, we have a variety of different ones. I believe the member that asked the question was very specific on the technical side, and that so those are going to be very specific job listings. But we also have civilian opportunities at every detachment across the province, and that's more working in general administrative roles at a detachment. So again, it's all going to be job spec specific, and it's also going to be geographically specific. But that website that is quoted there in the chat is where you can find all those opportunities.
That's so great. Thank you. We do have one more question. Do you have time, Tony?
I do. I
Okay.
absolutely.
Christina, go ahead.
Hi. So I was just wondering, I have two really quick questions. How do you volunteer? Just because I'm not sure
Excellent.
just like how I would do that. And then also, what does like the schedule look like? Like I'm a single mom, so I was just wondering like how does that work? Like is it shift work or yeah, I was just curious.
Absolutely. Okay, so kind of two questions there. I'll address the first one. How do you volunteer? How do you volunteer? You apply. So you go to our website, opp.ca/careers, and you apply under the auxiliary section. Very similar process to what I described earlier for the provincial constable side. And the best part about that is not only are you volunteering with our organization at that point, but you're in an OPP uniform. You are a full-on valued OPP member. Plus, you really get to learn if this job's for you. I think this job's for you, Christina. But if you had that doubt, it's a great opportunity to come in, because not only are you going to be involved in community events, but you're also going to go on ride-alongs. You're going to be doubled up with officers going call to call to call. And that really tends to solidify the deal. It's like, yes, absolutely, I could see myself doing this. Now, when you talk about being a mom, by the way, congratulations. It is awesome. I love having kids. It's as crazy as they are at times, as rambunctious. It is such an amazing experience. So many of our members are parents. And when we talk about, I think you mentioned single mom. So good on you, because that's a massive responsibility and undertaking. When you start your career, is it shift work? Yes, it is. It's days and nights. Generally, it's 6 to 6, 6 a.m., 6 p.m., 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. But what we could tell you is that whatever detachment you're going to work at, there are other mothers in there. There are other parents in there, and everybody works together on finding childcare, finding appropriate like supports and that, and really on that too. And I want to I don't want to overgeneralize here, but I do want to address, because I think it's so important. And Christina, you're such a great example of this. The OPP this past year, we just celebrated 50 years of women in uniform in policing. And that's a celebration. We did it across the province. We did specific women-bound events. And we're continuing on doing that in 2025. And it's a great opportunity that if you want to come out to one of those events, I think you said you're in Aurelia. We will be doing them specifically in Aurelia. And you could come out and speak to other women, other mothers, single mothers that are on the job and have those very similar experiences to you. And they're really there to reassure you, to tell you, and I can reassure you right now that you can do it, and make it work. What we know is a happy family life means, a happy employee. If you're not happy, and if the job's tearing apart your family life, you're not going to be a happy employee. And we want employees that are engaged, that enjoy doing what they're doing. We know they can only do that if they have that support system at home as well. So our members work with you. Like I say, we all kind of have our, okay, so who's a good babysitter? Who's a good one for night? So who's a good one for and we will work with you, detachment to detachment, to ensure that you are supported throughout.
Okay, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Okay, we are at 5:37. So just being aware of everybody's time and our special guest time, I think we will leave it there. Everybody on this call, thank you for spending time to explore your careers. Thank you, Sergeant Gabrielli, for spending this time with us in this session, and we really appreciate it. And
Absolutely.
I think we have, go ahead, please.
Yeah, no, thank you. I was just gonna, if I could leave with anything, is well, Jessica has my information. If you did have some specific questions or that weren't addressed today, please reach out through Jessica. She'll relay it to me. We will be doing live in person for those that are in. I mean, this is so great because in the Barrie area, I saw in Aurelia, Rama, and those that are in Thunder Bay, we do in-person info sessions in those specific communities on a regular basis. So you can always come out in person. They're always free. You just have to register online. Or May 23rd, those that are around the GTA area, we do have our big OPP Career Expo at the Great Canadian Casino and Resort. It used to be Woodbine. You could come out as well. No registrations required for that. And you can meet our recruiters, and all of our specialty areas, or many of our specialty areas, I should say, civilian and uniform, to further discuss and inform yourselves about careers within the OPP.
Hey, thank you so much for that. And everyone on the call, I'll be sharing back some information and we will be distributing this recording at a later date. So thanks again. And I wish everyone well with the rest of their evening.
And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And thank you, Jessica, for having me, and Lakehead as a whole. I appreciate it.